Amy Thurman back again with 100 Days, 100 Emotions. We're on day 64 today, and we're talking about hopefulness. This is a good one. Oh my goodness. I love this one so, so much. These that are seem more positive are ones that I just really, really gravitate to, and I think you will too. Remember, this is a series, so there are others if you would like to watch them. Just go to hashtag 100 days, 100 emotions. That's the numerical number 100, streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and you can find those there. If you would like to be a special guest, I have a special guest come on and share a story of when they have experienced this emotion. Then reach out to me. I would love to plug you in. We can find an emotion that works for you. And I have a special surprise for my guest that I haven't announced yet, but it's something you will definitely want to be part of. So send me a message, make a comment, somehow reach out to me, and I will get you plugged in. So let's get into this today and talk about hopefulness. I want to introduce you to my friend, Cheryl. Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Amy. It's a delight to be here.
Oh, you're so, so welcome. I'm so eager to hear what you have to share about hopefulness. But it's funny because Cheryl and I talked earlier and we met online on a platform that we're both part of. And as we started talking, we realized we don't live that far from each other, like literally just within a few miles. It's so crazy. So I just think it's such a small world. Things happen for a reason. And I'm so excited to connect with you and get to meet you in person someday. So fun.
Right. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it will
We've already
be.
found out we have a lot to talk about.
We sure do. That's right. So today we're talking about hopefulness. And let's just start by reading this that hopefulness includes a belief in the possibility of positive outcomes and confidence in the future. It's also an expectation that things will get better or that goals and aspirations can be achieved. And when I think about hopefulness, the first thing that came to mind, it's kind of in a convoluted kind of way. The first thing that came to mind was when I found out that my neck was broken. Right? It doesn't that sound wild that that provided me hopefulness? But because I went 6 months with nobody knowing any what was wrong with me, laid in that bed going to all these different doctors trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and someone finally said, "Oh, your neck is injured and it's injured badly." That provided hopefulness for me because as this said, that it was an expectation. Someone knew what was wrong and I had the hopefulness that maybe I could get better. And so that's what I think about when I think about hopefulness. And I would love to know your experience with hopefulness, Cheryl, and what you have to share, what it has taught you today.
Well, in fact, I just thought of another time that actually rang true also. I had a bad fall in a grocery store. When I was in a hurry and I had my kids in the car, I said, just stay in the car. I'll be right back. I'm going to go get some stuff for salad to take for the teacher's day the next day. I ran in, slipped and fell, and oh my goodness, I hurt. And people were trying to get me up, wanted to take me to the hospital. I said no, but then the next day I thought I can't stand this. They took X-rays, they took a CAT scan, and said, "Oh, you just got sore." For 6 months, they tried to tell me it was all in my head, and I got weaker and weaker. I started buckling at the knees. Finally, I went to a specialist out of town. I called my doctor and I said, "Tell me who you would go to. I've got to get to somebody." And when I got down there in Houston, they started looking at the first CAT scan and said, "Oh, yeah, you injured your back." And I thought, what?
Wow.
6 months they've told me I didn't because they misread it. And
Yeah.
then I went through all these terrible tests that were, I was having a sign I could die or be paralyzed or
Yeah.
whatever. And a second opinion doctor walked in and scratched my leg with a needle and said, "What are you, hypochondriac?" And just, made fun of me for wanting to get help. And I said, "Look, I'm from out of town. My mother has just flown here to help me. I need to know what's wrong." You're right. A diagnosis makes all the difference. Next day, I went through a test and I was crying in that test because they couldn't deaden my back. And
Mm.
when they rolled me out in the hall, I knew then what was wrong. And that does bring that hopeful feeling that now that I know what's wrong, we can take care of it. And the
Yeah.
doctor walked over to me and he said, "Miss Jennings, I was in there with you, and now I know you do need to have surgery. And I
Mm.
think so many times in our lives, this goes back to things that have happened to us in the past. When our first son was born, we didn't realize something was wrong. They had given me ether because they didn't know how to find the doctor at the time, because that's before cell phones and before any kind of pagers or anything. And so they couldn't find him. And they thought, well, he's probably out buying clothes or art for his ceiling because that's what he was known for.
Hmm.
And so they gave me ether to keep me from having the baby till they could find him. And I woke up 2 hours later. They had given our son oxygen, but told me everything is fine. I will see you in 2 weeks. And the doctor left town.
Hmm.
That night, he turned blue and they had to put him in an incubator. And, there were things that happened, but it took 14 months of him crying all the time before we finally, my husband said, either you put Cheryl in the hospital because she is about to go over the edge,
I
or you
imagine.
find out what's wrong with our son. So we went for tests and found out he had cerebral palsy and he had been having
Mm.
seizures all that time. And
Oh
what we
my
had
word.
gone in and described, I would say, his eyes look funny. Well, they don't look funny now. Miss Jennings, you're just a new mother. You don't understand. I heard those words so many times. And that
Wow.
is why I now am so passionate about helping young mothers who have a problem with a child learn to speak up, stand up, speak up, feel empowered because you are their voice. And if you don't stand up for them, nobody else will. And I just realized how many times that diagnosis is the turning point from hopelessness to hopeful. And
Yeah.
it makes us realize, okay, now we can find an answer because we know what we're dealing with. And I think that's the way a lot of people feel, especially if they have a child who's born that has any kind of problem at all. They
Yeah.
just want to know what's wrong, what's wrong. And when they find out, then the hopefulness begins because now we know what we're dealing with. So
Right.
I
It's
think
like
that's a big deal.
yeah, it's like you can create a plan now, whereas before you didn't even know what to plan for because you didn't know what you were dealing with. But once you
Right.
know, oh, this is it. Okay, I can create a plan. We can a treatment plan. We can get the ball rolling now. So it does create a sense of hopefulness. And I'm curious to know how long it took you to get to the point where you realized I have to be his voice. I have to speak up for him.
Well, it probably took me a lot longer because I wasn't very pushy, and I didn't have very good self-esteem growing up. I was very unsure of myself, and I always talked about how smart my sisters were, and how they could do all these things, but I wouldn't talk about myself because I didn't feel like I could do as much as
Mhm.
anybody else. And so I think it probably took me quite a while before I realized we had to go through an awful lot of very negative experiences where doctors gave us really so little hope. And with having a special needs child that required total care, he had to be held all the time because he had no head control. He had no back control. He could not sit up. We had to hold him probably for a couple of years. And, the doctors, the first one said, oh, yeah, there's something really wrong. I'll send you to a specialist. When I was in the hospital almost dying, and he was only 5 months old, he sent us to the top specialist in Nashville who looked at him and told my mother, oh, quit smothering this little grandbaby. But I'll see your daughter when she gets out of the hospital or when she can come in. When I got in there, he was like, well, he's slow, probably no slower than you. And by that time, he was about 7 months old and could not hold a rattler, could not hold his head up, could not
Mm.
do anything that a 7 month old should have been doing. But he was like, and even if we knew what was wrong. You can't do anything till he's school age. And I was like, nope, that's wrong. That is wrong. And I think that may have been when I just really thought, wait a minute, these doctors are not giving me the right information. But I had to dig for information. There was no way to get an 800 number. I remember thinking, oh, if we only had an 800 number, I could call and say, this is what's going on. Can you tell me what I do? Where I go.
Right. Yes.
And just the other day, somebody said, Cheryl, do you realize you are that 800 number now? And I thought,
Oh my
no,
gosh,
I
I love
hadn't.
that. Oh,
Uh,
I love that
I
so much.
because I'm really desperately trying to contact people who need help to let them know you can do it. I know it's hard, but you can do it. And you can just buckle down and say, I'm going to do this. And that's where I think a lot of people will get their hope is when they quit saying, I can't do this. I can't. And they start saying, okay, how am I going to do this? All right, this is what
Yes.
I'm going to do one step at a time and reach out for somebody who's been in your shoes before you and find
Yes.
out how did they cope? How did they do this? Because that gives you the courage to say, okay, I'll try. If you can do it, I'll do it. And I think that is so important for families who have children that they don't know what's wrong or they've just found out and they don't really have much information to connect with somebody else who is in that situation or has gone through that situation and can say, well, I tried this, maybe that'll work. As long as you don't say, well, you got to do blah, 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 because
Right.
whatever you did may not be right for that child. And I had plenty of those people that wanted to tell me how to do everything, but they weren't in my shoes. And I think that's another thing that made me get my voice. I learned to speak up,
Yeah.
but it took a lot
There's
of tears to get there.
oh, I understand on that level. There is so much value in self-advocacy. Like,
Right.
I have had to advocate for myself too because obviously the doctors didn't know what was wrong with my neck and they were telling me it's just this or that. And I knew inside there's something really wrong happening. Nobody can figure it out. I'm going to find someone who can. And so I did
Right.
have to go through multiple doctors, but I had to self advocate, and that's so important. And I heard you mention that, and so I feel like what you offer is so valuable to people who maybe not don't know how to advocate for themselves. That you can be a voice to help them be able to do that because that's your mission, that's your purpose, that's your heart, right?
Mhm.
If you wouldn't mind to share
Right.
a little bit about what you do and how people can reach you. I would love for you to I would love for them to get to know you a little bit.
Well, thank you. It is what my mission is, and it's because I have a son who has always required total care. He is now 53, and I can no longer lift him or care for him, but we've gone through a lot of different situations, and some were not so good. And we had to stand up and advocate for him many times. And I can just tell you, as the parent of any child, you've got to be the voice for those children. You have got to say, this is what I think is good. Sometimes, even with good intentions, the teachers could maybe think a program will work better for them. And you think, that's never going to work because they can't do something that is required in order to go that direction. Like our son in school, they kept trying to teach him time and money was never going to
Mhm.
happen. In fact, they tried to teach him the alphabet for 3 years, and he'd get one letter, lose two, one letter, lose two.
Mm.
And finally, the third year, a teacher that was in a regular classroom came in to teach his class, and she used phonics. 2 months, he got the alphabet. I
Wow.
mean, it's just sometimes you have to try different methods because what we have to understand is that every child's different. And there are many ways that we learn, but we often find that teachers will use one or two methods and they miss how that child learns best. Some of them need hands on, others need leave them alone, but they've got to have, somebody showing them how to do it. Others want to be told how to do it. Others want to read how to do it. And they all are just learning the way that's best for them. And we try to put them in a mold and say, no, this is what we're going to do. This is how I'm going to teach. No, you can't do that. And that's what we're learning, is that every child is so different. We've got to figure out what's best for them. And Amy, I know there is a verse in the Bible that um, reminds me of, when he says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. Well, training up a child to me is find out what's the best way to be able to teach your child and understand that their character and their abilities have a lot to do with how you're going to train them. But what I do is I try to help parents be able to understand that they need to be the spokesperson for their child by learning how to communicate between each other. Because what I've noticed is a lot of parents, when they are first diagnosed, their child is diagnosed, they don't realize that they're both grieving. They don't
Mhm.
realize that they both are upset and angry, and yet they do it in such different ways that they get mad at each other. They feel like, well, you don't care as much as I do. They don't have the ability, sometimes without help, to be able to find out how they can work together so that both of them are going in the same direction for their family and their child. But the divorce rate is so high, and a lot of that
Mhm.
is communication. And that was where I come in. That's my degree. I did a video about why communication breaks down in families with special needs children. And it's because I realized that if we could help them understand each other, hey, that child's got a real good chance of improving and excelling in ways that nobody's thinking about right now. You'll have
Wow.
doctors that can sometimes say, "Oh, your child's never going to walk, or he's never going to talk," and it devastates the parents. But then if they leave hopeless from that conversation, many times they don't recover their relationship. So what I want them to do is to go, okay, that's what the diagnosis is, but it depends on how much you and I, as husband and wife, get involved in that child's life. Because the better you work together, the more that child's going to excel. And the interesting thing is to learn how many people that are famous have autism or have cerebral palsy or have some kind of a learning disability or they're
Mhm.
dyslexic. And if you don't believe me, you go look up celebrities and type in one of those things, and you'll find out there are several hundred that are
Yeah.
dealing with those. We've had presidents that were dyslexic,
Mhm.
and not long ago, Elon Musk admitted on Saturday Night Live that he was autistic.
Mm.
Hello, he's smart. He's the most,
Yeah.
the wealthiest person in the world. And yet, a lot of people look at autism as if it's a disability.
Right.
We need to see it as, well, they're not like what I thought they were going to be like. I just have to learn how to help them in their way, not my way. So
Exactly.
that's what I do.
Exactly.
And if somebody if somebody wants to get in touch with me, they're right on the bottom of the screen there. You can either write me, and if you do, Cheryl helps me at gmail.com, or if you send me a note on my website there, I have a PDF little handout that I would love to give you that tells you a little bit of hints about caregiving. And I did write a book about it. I interviewed 150 caregivers. And so I've tried to learn what lessons other people learned that we can help you to have an easier life than what we've experienced. And that's my big purpose, is make it easier for you than it was for me.
Yeah, I love that so, so much. Is that book available on your website? Is it
Well, it's available on Amazon. I do
okay.
have a link to it, but it's just to show
Okay.
people where to go. But
Okay,
it's
that's
called
good.
It Takes Courage to Be a Caregiver.
Okay. My Wi-Fi dropped there for a minute, so I apologize. I just disappeared because my Wi-Fi disappeared, but I
Okay,
made it back. So, excuse me.
that's
Thank you
okay.
so much for sharing about you and what you do and how you can help others. And I'm telling you, if those of you who have any kind of special needs child, and like Cheryl said, it doesn't matter the age. Her son is 53. that she would be happy to help you. So please reach out to her. Her website here, cheryljennings.com/home, or her email, cherylhelpsme@gmail.com. You can find her and reach her in one of those ways. So thank you for sharing that, Cheryl. I
Let
want
let
to,
me I'd like to just tell them a couple of things before we are through,
okay.
because there are some really good sites out there that help. If your child has autism, I was just on the first World's Autism Summit, and there were 85 speakers. The the main person that represents autism is a doctor. Her name is Temple Grandin.
Yep.
There is a movie about her. And if
Hmm.
people want to understand how a child with autism thinks, that is a perfect way to learn, because she told them and did the movie about herself to help them teach people, okay, we just see things in a different way. And there is a site called Autism Today Foundation, Autism Today. If you get on there, they have tons of material that you can get for free. There are several places that if somebody gets in touch with me, I would love to tell you where resources are. And if it's not autism, if it's another one, I'll tell you resources where you can get about cerebral palsy. And the number one problem that we have as parents is we feel alone. We feel like nobody understands what we're going through. And hopefully that's true for everybody that's around you. But there are plenty of people out here that have support groups that can help you feel like, okay, now I have somebody that really does understand. And that's one reason I'm doing what I'm doing is I want people to know, okay, I did it, you can do it, and I'll help you. We'll go through it together. We'll try to help bridge the
Yeah.
gap of what you are missing to get the help you need.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to connect you with people and for people to find you, because there are people out there looking for this, who need this, who don't talk about it. Like you said, people don't talk about it because they're ashamed. They don't want people to know. But you're going to be by yourself if you don't talk about it. So finding someone like Cheryl to help you get through this, I think, can be gold. I do want to, for those of you watching, if you would like to join our conversation, please tell us what hopefulness has taught you. Either put it in a comment or send it to me in a direct message. I would love to continue that conversation with you there about what hopefulness has taught you. If you have seen these before, you know that I use an AI image generator to create an image that represents the emotion of the day. And so today's is hopefulness. And I love these because it's almost like art therapy. Like you look at it and you don't really
Mhm.
think that represents hopefulness. But if you look at it from the lens of hopefulness, you can always pull something out. And so it's going to take me, because my Wi Fi went off, it's going to take me just a second to pull up this here. But let me full screen it. Oh, where did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay,
It's
let
on
me
there.
full screen it so we can take a look at it here. This is what it gave me when I asked it to create an image that represents hopefulness, and it's so pretty. Like, isn't the just the
Beautiful.
colors jump out at me? Just it just looks happy. Like, excuse me. And those that it has given me before, this there has been the sun as a focal point like this, but it's never looked like this with the little dots and the little things added to it. And I don't know, this just makes me feel so good when I look at this. Is there anything that jumps out at you, Cheryl?
Well, for me, I'm looking at it and I see that things can be in a little bit of a darkness before you get to the point. That
Oh,
it's, to
yes.
me, the big circle there represents a way out, as if I were
Mm.
standing in a place that was like a cave and I'm looking for, where's the light? How am I going to get out of here? If you've ever been in a cave and they turn off all the lights, total darkness. You
And you
light
hear the
one
bats.
match.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you have just one light, match or a lighter, just one little thing, it lights up so much. And I think that's what, as helpers, that's what we're trying to do. We
Mm.
are the light to help people find their way to get help. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh
what
my
I'm
gosh.
seeing.
That's so good because it's so true. Like, you're in this deep, dark place and you don't know how to get out of it. You need help, but you don't want to ask for help, but you know you need it. And so, just being a light, exactly what Cheryl said, like, Cheryl helps provide that for people who need that and who don't want to ask for it, but know that they need it. And oh my goodness, that's so, so good, Cheryl. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let me pop this off here and so, so good. I'm so thankful that you chose to spend this time with us today, Cheryl, and to tell us about what you do and your experience with hopefulness. And again, if you would like to reach Cheryl and get her help or just ask her some questions, get her free PDF, then this is where you can find her and contact her. So if you have questions, you can always contact me and ask me too. I'm happy to help connect you. And so thank you all for watching so, so much. Thank you for being here and being so supportive. If you have found this helpful or think it will be helpful for someone you know, please share it. Share it with them individually or just share it widely so that we can reach more people and get Cheryl's message out more widely. So again, if you are interested in being a guest, just contact me either through a direct message or a comment, and I will be happy to plug you in. All right, guys. Until tomorrow, I will be back with a new emotion. And again, thank you so much for being here, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you, Amy. I appreciate being here.
All right. I will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye.